Today I woke up at 3 a.m., ran 10 miles, did 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 pull-ups, and then I fought 5 rounds of MMA, followed by a nice bout of scientific work. Let's get after it. This is what typical motivation can sound like. What do you think, Wahab?
Yes. And speaking of motivation, you think you're going to feel that way tomorrow? And after tomorrow, maybe next week or next month, you're going to keep that same level of fire in you?
That is a great question. Exactly. So, what's the problem with motivation that we can see in our lives, for example?
A problem, you say?
Exactly.
Motivation becoming a problem sounds very contradictory. You start thinking, well, motivation is a great spark that will light a flame inside you, to propel you fast forward with unboundful energy, strength, and stamina.
Yes.
Yet, there's gonna be one day where you wake up and you're like, I don't feel like it. Is that motivational video, book, movie, song, whatever, gonna have the same level of impact as it did when you first saw it?
Oh, yeah.
Not really. It's not going to have like that same level of impact, that the oomph that it once gave you.
That is a big question. Yeah. So, recently we have seen lots of motivational items, such as books. They exist and then they're being published very frequently. There are motivational sayings all over the internet. There are motivational reels. So these are just some examples that provide you with motivation. So those tools are good, but then there is going to be the problem. And the problem, in my opinion, is that those tools alone won't kind of like make you achieve the goals that they motivate you to achieve. So in a sense, what happened to us is that, or to me at the very least, I have been consuming all that motivational content, and oftentimes I could find myself doing nothing. So motivation is all good. Yes, you feel that oomph sensation after consuming some sort of motivational content, but you do not move forward to the actual action. So does it sound familiar?
Been there, done that many times. It's more so like you watch something, you hear something, you get this fire inside you, then you kind of see yourself in a position where, I wouldn't say you're stuck, but you just put yourself, or you find yourself in a position where you don't know where to start, you don't know when to start, and you don't know the approach you're going to take.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right?
Exactly.
Like there's something... Wait, you were going to ask something?
What you mean stuck, as in like in terms of motivation or goals?
In terms of like, you watch that video, you hear that, quote that hypes you up, then you feel like you have the motivation to go out and do things. Or like whatever goal, objective you had in your mind, you're ready to go out and pursue it. But then you just kind of find yourself in a position where you're like, okay, now what?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, how do I start? Where do I start? When do I start? Have you guys had that before?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's a good setup. So yeah, we have the setup, which is kind of like all nice and fluffy and positive and motivating, right? But then we have the problem. So just like in a classical, let's say, movie scenario, so we have a setup, we have the conflict. So in that case, it's the conflict between this motivational push and our internal resistance to take the actual action, as I was saying. So, and then we need to resolve it. So we need to hack this situation somehow to achieve the resolution, which again is going to be the part of the classical movie scenario. So what I was thinking is that we need to take action. And then in my experience, one of the good methods here was just to not delay the action after you feel motivated to do that, but take this action. And then, in my experience, the tool that will help you is the good old discipline.
Motivation is a great Kickstarter, but discipline keeps the engine running. And that is something I'm guilty of many times. I know I speak in this manner, it's going to sound a bit hypocritical.
Yes.
But again, we've literally been there and done that. Especially in whole weightlifting scenario and suffering minor injuries, coming back from them. It was always the comeback that made it oh yes, I'm going to train smarter and harder now. And then fast forward several years later, and I break my hand, and then the whole time during that process, I'm thinking the comeback is going to be so great. I'm going to be better, going to regain all that lost muscle.
Yes.
I can do it. Just letting that fire build up. And then the day when I'm capable of exercising again.
Yes.
Extremely high outburst for 1 month, and then just dropped.
Oh, yeah.
Went back to lazy, found excuses that I allowed to continue. And then it's just been inconsistent back and forth. Drop down, saying, oh no, how can I do that? Oh, motivation. Go back up.
Absolutely.
Oh, everything's going great. Kind of boring. Drop back down. Oh no, why am I down again? Motivation. Go back up. You want to avoid that chart that just goes up and then down and up. And then
That is very true. So we are basically trying to bridge this gap between the motivation and the action. Another thing that I found myself in personally, so let's say there is some sort of motivation to do something and I feel motivated to do that. Okay, well, I'm going to, for example, go to the gym, or I'm going to wake up tomorrow and go to train the sport of MMA, for instance, whatever it might be, just fill the blank, so to speak. So, and then what I found myself at was that I was thinking a lot between the state of being motivated and actually taking the action. And I was thinking maybe for days or for weeks about this action taking. And that's how I was procrastinating. So basically I was wasting time. There was lots of wasted time that was spent on thinking and hesitation and scheming and trying to make excuses, things like that. And then what I thought about that was that basically I was in many cases thinking for a very long time. So maybe it was hours right before taking the action. Maybe it was days or weeks, whereas the action itself only took maybe an hour, right? So maybe it was a training session that I was planning to do, and then it just takes an hour and then you're all done. So, and then at the end of the day, I ended up wasting, let's say, several days or several hours, let's say, thinking about the action, whereas the action was just taking just about an hour of my time. So that was kind of another thing that kind of can help me beat this procrastination that lies between the action of being motivated or the state of being motivated and doing something that you need to do. So oftentimes you just waste more time thinking about what you need to do than actually doing that thing.
Now, what you both sparked in my head was when the feeling of, you have that motivation that comes in, you have that fire to get started, and then you don't get started or you don't plan on it. And then, as Wahab, you also mentioned that you start to think about reasons why you should delay it or why you should start later, why you should not do it. And then, or like you mentioned, sitting down and thinking about doing it, but not doing it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the way I see this, the way I visualize this is you're building your own wall of thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
The more time you spend building your wall of thoughts, the harder the climb is going to be.
Yes.
It's not impossible. It's not, not doable. But just picture this. The more time you spend with your thoughts and excuses, the more you're going to have to climb to make it through.
Exactly.
Now, it's not a hard task to, eventually climb, because at the end of the day, if you want a reason to get going, to get moving, you'll find it and you'll do it. So rather than spending time thinking, take less time thinking, or think only what you need to think to get going, and then just get going.
Exactly. Well, so these are some nice tools. So we have the just discipline approach. We have this approach of beating the wall of thought, right? So what else can we offer from our life hacking perspective?
Consistency. And all, like you've said this enough as well, is consistency over intensity.
Exactly.
And then especially when it comes to motivation and discipline, it's very easy to do things when you have this fire inside you, when you have the motivation to go out, to improve, to have these goals, objectives you want to chase and everything. Like Wahab, with you and your so-called, what you said, like your comeback story, how the first month you were on fire and then, was going ins and outs and whatnot. But then once you find your consistent stage, that's when you build on the discipline. Because I've heard this quote before, and I think I've mentioned it in one of the earlier episodes here, is motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. And at the end of the day, we talk about life hacking. We pursue growth. We pursue progress. You're not going to pursue growth or progress without discipline. Motivation is easy. Then again, it's very easy to do things when you're motivated. But to do things when you don't have the motivation, when you don't feel like doing it, when it's difficult to do, that's when it truly counts, is what I believe.
Exactly. Yeah, so in a sense, it could be intimidating, right? So because to be motivated is easy. You just consume the content or read the book or watch some sort of motivational video on YouTube or a motivational reel on Instagram. And then that's kind of the easy part, right? So then I think the most difficult part in actually kind of incorporating the motivation into the achievement of your goals is taking the action towards the goal. But in my opinion, in my experience, actually, of the life hacking along this line, once you start taking the action itself becomes much easier. So you get into the kind of the groove of doing that. Maybe it's going to be about grading exams, for example, right? So I have, let's say, 100 exams to grade. If I grade just one exam, right, that's already much better. So it is just now less than 100 to go. It's 99 more to go, but I started. I know what it looks like, what it feels like to grade the exam, right? Or I know what it feels like to maybe lift weights in the gym. And now I can do progressively more and more exercises and more sets. So that becomes not too bad. So you are kind of like in this line and you go and then you achieve some sort of bite-sized chunk of this task and then you are good. So but the important thing will be just here to, with discipline, approach the doing of the chunk of the task, right? Because conceivably, if you have some sort of grand goal, you cannot achieve it just in one sitting, right? So overnight or momentarily, you need to work stepwise. But then as you work stepwise, in between those steps of work, you need to have some period of rest, not to burn out. And then that works very well, especially if you set some sort of timer on your watch for, let's say, 45 minutes of focused work, no distractions, full-on discipline mode, engaged, right? And then after that, you have 15 minutes of the break. And then you can use the social media to get remotivated if you want, connect with friends, family, pet the animal in your house, and then you will be restored and good to go. Again, rinse and repeat type of deal.
Love that.
Wonderfully said.
Yeah, it's more so like perform, hold on, rest and recover as you need to, and keep going.
Exactly.
Especially when you don't feel like it. And that's the difference between motivation and discipline.
Yes.
And many times I feel like a common question is, I'm not disciplined. How do I develop it? It's like the simple answer is to just do it. And you're doing it right when you're in the middle of something and you're like, oh, this sucks. I hate this. This is miserable.
Oh, yeah.
But I know if I do this now, I'll be so thankful for it in the future. So you're delaying the pleasure. You're delaying the gratification, which we did also mention in the previous episode. Because motivation in its sense is a stimulation. You're stimulating either yourself or other people to get them all riled up. And you see that many times in these public event seminars when you get this guy walking up and it's like, How many people want to change their life?
Yes.
You can do it. You can chase your dream. And then because of the atmosphere, you're surrounded by many people who are cheering. You're like, yes, I can do it. I can chase my dream. They wake up the next morning, nothing changes. Nothing is happening. In that moment, they're really motivated. They're fired up. They're ready to go. Then comes the time of actually doing something. It's like, no, maybe tomorrow, hit snooze.
Oh, yeah.
And then that builds up. And the thing is improvement. When I mentioned earlier, how it was these consistent ups and downs and then seeing I need to get better again. And then the motivation kicks me back up, is that growth and improvement are compounded.
Yes.
So the higher you are, the double the effect it's going to be.
Exactly.
And I think of it like that's why at first it's really hard because you see nothing. Like that first month in the gym, you probably don't see anything different. That first week of learning a language, you barely speak it well. You're stuttering, you make mistakes. That first day of writing a book, maybe you just have one paragraph down and you're thinking, I have 500 more pages to go.
Yes.
That first painting you paint is now a complete mess. You spilled ink. Oh no. But then it grows and gets better and better and better. Like, let's say you've never played guitar before. You try to learn guitar. How do you think it's going to sound? It's going to sound awful. Like, of course, it's supposed to. You're not going to naturally pick it up. That's why when we hear people that play really well, we're like, wow, you kind of instantly picture in all the hundreds of hours that were put in, yet you're not telling yourself that. You're aware of it. Similar with any instrument, any sport, any activity, hobby. When you're down, there's like no multiplier score. There's maybe a debuff because you have to put in every single minute effort. But once you're high up there, it's like times 50. It gets way easier. You pick it up instantly. Let's say you learn French. Now you can pick up German really easily. But you have to go through it. And the thing is motivation, the feel good sensation of, yes, I can do it. I can achieve my dreams. I can do anything I set my mind to, are good to start. But
yes,
if they're constantly in your face like that, and yet you're unfazed by it because you're just overstimulated and it produces nothing to you, then it's more detrimental than impactful.
Exactly. All right. Well, these are excellent points. So, anything else we have to add? We are now at 17 minutes. I'll be kind of editing that anyway. So,
climb over that wall of thoughts you have and that wall of excuses. Remember that motivation will get you going, but only discipline will keep you growing. So, motivation is good here and there to build that fire in you, but don't rely on the fire to keep you going the entire time. Use your discipline. And discipline is a habit that you need to build. And like every habit, especially good ones, they take time, they take effort, and they take consistency.
Exactly.
Day by day. Just do it. Just focus on what you can do today, and then the rest is going to play itself out.
Very true.
Yeah, keep hacking.
That is how we build the bridge between the motivation and action.
Keep pushing.